Okay.
Standard 8, personal property appraisal reporting. In reporting the results of a personal property appraisal, an appraiser must communicate each analysis, opinion, and conclusion in a manner that is not misleading. Standard 8 addresses the content and level of information required in a report that communicates the results of a personal property appraisal. Standards Rule 8.1. Similar to Standards Rule 2.1, written or oral personal property reports must clearly and accurately set forth the appraisal in a manner that will not be misleading, contain sufficient information to enable the intended users of the appraisal to understand the report properly, and clearly and accurately disclose all assumptions, extraordinary assumptions, hypothetical conditions, and limiting conditions used in the assignment. Standards Rule 8.2. Each written report must be prepared under either an appraisal report or a restricted appraisal report. The content of an appraisal report must be consistent with the intended use of the appraisal and, at a minimum, state the identity of the client, state the intended use of the appraisal, summarize information sufficient to identify the property involved in the appraisal, state the property interest appraised, state the type and definition of value and cite the source of definition, state the effective date of the appraisal and date of the report, summarize the scope of work used to develop the appraisal, summarize the information analyzed, the appraisal methods and techniques employed, and the reasoning that supports the analysis, opinions, and conclusions. Exclusion of an appraisal methodology must be explained. State, as appropriate to the class of personal property involved, the use of property existing as of the date of value and of the use of property reflected in the appraisal. When an opinion of the appropriate market or market level was developed by the appraiser, summarize the support and rationale for that opinion. Clearly and conspicuously state all extraordinary assumptions and hypothetical conditions, and state that their use might have affected the assignment results, and include a signed certification in accordance with the Standards Rule 8.3. The content of the restricted appraisal report must be consistent with the intended use of the appraisal at a minimum. State the identity of the client unless the client has specifically requested otherwise, and state a prominent use restriction that limits use of the report to the client and warns that the rationale for how the appraiser arrived at the opinion and conclusions set forth in the report may not be understood properly without additional information in the appraiser's work file.
This is the restricted report?
Yes.
Okay.
State the intended use of the appraisal. State information sufficient to the identity of the property involved. State the property interest appraised. State the type and value and cite the source of the definition. State the effective date of the appraisal and the date of the report. State the scope of work used to develop the appraisal. State the appraisal methods and techniques employed and the value, opinion, and conclusions reached. Exclusion of any of the approaches to value must be explained. State, as appropriate to the class of personal property involved, the use of the property existing as of the date of value. When an opinion of the appropriate market or market level was developed by the appraiser, state that opinion. Clearly and conspicuously state all extraordinary assumptions and hypothetical conditions, and state that their use might have affected the assignment results, and include signed certification. Standards Rule 8.3. Each written real property appraisal report must contain a signed certification. Standards Rule 8.3 contains specific content that must be included in a signed certification. The names of individuals providing significant real property appraisal assistance who do not sign a certification must be stated by the certification. Disclosure of their assistance is not required, but a description of their assistance is not. Standards Rule 8.4. To the extent that it is possible and appropriate, an oral personal property appraisal report must address the substantive matters set forth in Standards Rule 8.2a.
I didn't realize that was Ian.